Hey, what's up YouTube? In this video, I'll be showing you how to make an entire survival village. Well, that's not quite right. I've made a playlist which will show you how to make an entire survival village, but that doesn't sound as good. So I spent my entire yesterday combining all of these builds together that you can see on the ground in front of you. I've combined them into a nice little village all by themselves. I honestly thought there'd be more buildings. This is everything on my channel that I think kind of fits together in a nice survival style that you can use to make your very own village. Now, the reason that I've done this is because I want to start making more builds like this, and I wanted to have somewhere to put them, somewhere that we could progress. And this is also another reason that I've made this video. I want to know what I should add to this village, so be sure to comment that down below whilst I'm showing you around. But just to let you know, everything that I'm about to show you does have its very own tutorial, and you can find the playlist that has all of these builds in the card system and in the description below. It'll be something like how to build a survival town. So let's begin, shall we? Right in the center of this town is a well. So this is a well, pretty easy build. You can find a tutorial for this in the playlist. Originally I made it for my campsite, but I figured that it's a nice center focal point for my village, and it's something that you'd expect to find. I think it looks quite nice. It's a bit of a one-up from the standard Minecraft well, isn't it? So, the next thing I want to show you, and I have done a bit of landscaping, so we have some simple bridges and we have some simple paths everywhere. I haven't had a lot of time to refine the houses and the blacksmiths and all of the things that I've made, but they all do kind of connect. So, this is a blacksmith's that I've made. Typically, you would see a big giant pixel art hammer and an anvil behind this, but it didn't really fit the feel of the town. But I made this quite a long time ago. Here we have the place where you would actually, this is the building where the blacksmith would live. Theoretically, there would be a room up inside here, which I'll show you in the proper tutorial for this. And down here is where you would buy all of the wares for the blacksmith. And outside here is like the kiln and all of the things that would be used to actually craft the weapons and armor that said blacksmith would sell. As I said, and I probably will repeat this quite a bit, this is a tutorial. If you particularly like this build, this is a tutorial that you can find in the card system and the description below. Moving on up, next to the blacksmith, I felt it kind of appropriate to build these two very close together. Up here, this is a much more recent build. This is a mining hut. So this is actually what sparked things off. This is a mining hut that I'm realizing I didn't build quite right because I forgot one very important thing of the mining hut. But this mining hut is supposed to have a crane coming out of the right hand side of the hut. I'll overlay it onto the video that I'm talking about. It's supposed to have a crane that comes out of the side and it dips into this little man-made mine shaft that we have on the right hand side. But this is the build that kind of sparked it all off. This is what got me interested in building a nice little survival village. Once again, there's a tutorial for this build, except of course with the crane, and I also show you how to make the interior in said build. You can find a link for that once again in the description and the card system and all of those places. Now, behind this build, and whilst there is paths that connect you to this place, it's kind of tricky to get around them. So around the back of this build, we have a survival house. A lot of these things I've made a really long time ago, by the way. A lot of these things are kind of like 1 to 2 years old, which is crazy to think about. But this is my survival house. I think this is survival house number 6, if I do believe. And this is just supposed to fit in a village exactly like this one. I wish that I would have actually done this earlier, and I wish that I would have combined all these houses together. You're going to find a lot of houses that look quite like this one in a very similar style, using very similar materials shaped in all different ways. But if you like this particular style of build but not quite this house, then you're in luck because there is a lot of these. This is like survival house number 6, I do believe. And this is just positioned like behind the mining hut. I figured that maybe the miner lives here in a much nicer house, and that's just where he goes to go and, well, do his mining. If we come back towards the village for a moment, we have another survival house. This is survival house again, I believe number 3. It's kind of difficult when you start naming them just numbers, but this is survival house number 3. This looks kind of cool. It almost looks like a Halloween build because of how dark and mysterious this place looks. And once again, this is quite an old house. And if we look inside, there's quite a lot of space in here. I haven't done the interiors to any of these guys because it takes so long. I spent the entire day, like I said, making this entire village, landscaping it, building all these builds. I didn't really want to do the interiors, but yeah, there's loads of room in this. I think a lot of these builds kind of like hold together, despite the fact that I'd build them a lot differently nowadays, like I'd add loads more details to them. I still think that they're quite attractive looking builds and they look great, so there's no reason that this wouldn't look great in your survival world if you wanted to add it. Now, just across the pond from this build, literally, well, just across the lake really, because we have another bridge. Not a particularly nice looking bridge, but once again, I mean, after you've been building the entire day, you don't really want to spend loads and loads of time on making a nice looking bridge. You just want to make sure that things connect together. But on the river, on the lake, whichever this is, I'm not sure what the distinction is, we have ourselves a fishing hut, and this is also a really old build. It's kind of before its time. I really do like this, and once again, you can kind of see how old it is because it does like some of the details that I'd add to newer houses. In the older version of this, I actually had a pixel art fish and a pixel art fishing rod to kind of like show everybody like from miles away that this is like a fishing hut. This is where you'd like spend your time. You'd hang off the pier here. Maybe you'd even have a few boats tied up, and you'd just hang around in the cabin and around here, and you could go sailing on your boats up and down this river, and you can just fish off the pier. I don't know, it's kind of an interesting build. I only built a couple of builds like this. Like, I built this along with the blacksmiths, and then I didn't do any more, but I kind of want to build an entire village. So I think that'd be really cool if we had loads of varied different styles of houses. And I do have some ideas for some, but once again, let me know down there in the comments. And if we move up from the fishing hut, if we were to scale this little mountain, and once again, like where we have the mining hut and the fishing huts and the blacksmiths and stuff, like we have some nicer houses. Like this is a house kind of like on the hills, and this is, I believe this is actually like survival house number 3 or number 4 or something. This one isn't a particularly attractive house, but it does very much fit into the village, kind of like the designing process that we had when we were making the other houses. I mean, it very much blends in. It's a little bit bigger. If you were going for kind of a more simple feel, a less detailed feel, using very limited materials, then this is a really big house, and it'd probably fit into your village quite nicely. Although, once again, I mean, it's a bit of an older design. This, however, this is my hill biome house. I believe that it's called either like my hill house or my biome house. I think it's hill house because of the alliteration. But this is a hill house, can be built on any mountain or big giant hill, and it actually depends on that. It's very simple. It's just like the shell of a house, and if you check the inside, like this one hasn't got much to the interior, but it's very easy to like stuff a bed in here, add an extra story to it, and add like a crafting table and some chests and stuff. And if you're doing a lot of mining or a lot of exploring, like it's really easy to just add something like this onto a mountain. And if you can see, like, if you were to explore into this mountain, like having a nice little base right next to it that looks great, by the way, and it's easy to spot because it contrasts very nicely against the stone, something like this works great, and I just thought that I'd include it because I thought that it fit in. And I quite like the scaffolding that we use and like the stairs that we use to like navigate our way up the mountain. I quite like it. I think it looks quite cool. But yeah, that's my hill house, once again included in the playlist. If we were to make our way back across the river and we were to explore this direction, we have a couple of varied builds here, so I won't burn all of the varied builds in one, but this is actually, I think it's called my simple starter house or something like that. It's like the smallest survival house that I've ever made, and this one is a particularly new and cool house. It's really small. I think that it fits into a 4x4 area. Actually, it's a 4x5 area, I do believe, if my math isn't off. And in in this version, you can't do it, but in the proper version of this house, like, you can get underneath the house, and you have, like, a nice little mini cave, and you have all sorts, and you have a way to actually escape the house. Actually, you don't in this one, but in some of my other, like, really small houses, you have ways to escape the house using, like, the water that you have on the right. Like, there's little mini ways to escape, and in the real version of this, like, you can pop out at the top of the roof here, like, there's ladders on the side of the crafting table and the furnace, and you would be able to jump into, like, the tree that has been strategically planted here. So, if you want a really small house that fits into kind of anywhere, that one is definitely a good choice. That's, like, my smallest starter house ever. Moving on to this way, this is actually the first starter house that I ever made. This is, like, the first starter survival house a long time ago when I made this. This is supposed to be like a really easy, low-cost material, but big enough that you can actually store loads and loads of stuff in it. Like, this is kind of ideal for a first house that isn't that hard to make. This is the first survival house that I have ever made, and I still like it, despite the fact that I keep mentioning it. A lot of these houses suffer from the same thing. They are quite simple, but I still like it quite a bit. So that's my first survival house that I've ever made. If we move up past the back of this house, this is survival house number 2. This is one of the ugliest houses that I've ever made, ever. It's so ugly, but it's so cool as well, because it's just a big giant arrowhead. It's just a big giant triangle, but it's still, it has kind of like a lot of depth. Like, I love all of the light, and I love how the house is so, I like how the house is so, like, 2D and 3D at the same time. Like, it's such a simple design. I can't really explain why I like it. There's some reason that I like it that I really can't vocalize, but I do quite like this one. I really do. If we were to move even further beyond, where we have this lovely pond and this dark oak tree, you guys know of the dark oak tree by the pond is stuff of legend. You guys have heard of that before, and if we walk across this path here, we have another survival house. This is a much bigger, much richer survival house. I don't know the numbers of these things. Number 6, number 7, something like that. There's a nice sunflower field just behind it, but this is one of the nicer looking survival houses. So if you wanted to move a bit past the ugliness, this is quite a big house that looks really nice, that I do think kind of like stands up today as well. Maybe number 1 and number 2 don't stand up as well, but I really like the design of this. I like how easy it is as well. Like, the main point of most of these is that they're made of easy things to collect, and they are made in a way that's really easy to make as well, or at least that's the idea. This is, I think, the biggest out of all of them. I really do quite like this one. I really do. If we were to move back towards this general direction, we would find yet another house. Now, this is... I love this design. I love this design a lot. I like the idea of having, like, it's kind of like 2 halves of a house connected together, one where it's like connected outdoors with a nice garden up top, and the other half of the house connected with like a lot of interior space. So this is actually a really cool design, I think. I'd be able to do it a lot better nowadays. I'd add a lot more details to it. I'd make it look a bit more interesting. I'd connect it together in a much better way, I think. But for a survival build, I think that this looks really nice, and it's really quite big as well. Like, the interior, as you just saw, is quite formidable. Yeah, I really do like this. I think this is number 4. Watch me trying to name all these numbers and I've got them completely wrong. And the final build that I'm going to be showing you, because we've actually run out of builds, this is my starter treehouse. I believe that's what this one's called. This is my starter treehouse. It's made out of a spruce tree, or at least that's the way it's supposed to look. So it's a really tiny treehouse. It's not off of the floor by much. It's like 3 or 4 spruce wood, and you can climb up into here. You've got enough room for, like, say, a crafting table, and I've not done the wall on this side, but you've got enough room for, like, a crafting table, a furnace, a bed, maybe a chest or 2, and that's kind of all you need for the treehouse. If you're doing a lot of wood cutting, if you're chopping down a lot of trees, it's just nice to have a base in amongst the trees, in the forests, that has some materials that you might need. So if you wanted to keep your axes in here or your logs, it's just really easy to build for the most part. and it just sets you up nicely, like most of these houses. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my survival village. So not only did I want to show you this little village that I spent quite a bit of time working on, but what I want to do is expand this village. I want to make it bigger. I want you guys to suggest some more things that we can add to this village to make it bigger. So I'd prefer some unique builds. Houses are good, but for instance, a lot of you guys suggested in my mining hut video that I should make a potion hut. That's a cool idea. I've already begun working on it. A lot of you guys were like, how about like an enchanting tent? Also, a really cool idea. I'm going to begin working on that once I've finished my potion hut. But then what else is there? Do you guys have some more ideas? I'd love to hear about them. But if not, I think that you can get a pretty nice looking village just out of the builds that we have down there alone. And do remember, they're in the cards and the description below. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video around touring around our little survival village. I did spend loads of time on it. It does look cool from the sky, doesn't it? If you did, please give this video a like, give it a share. I'd really appreciate it. I honestly would. Also, comment down below and let me know what to make. Come on. Follow me on Twitter at TSMC360. If you make any of these builds, or if you begin your own village because of this video, and you do a much better job than I have, then please send me pictures of it on Twitter. I'd love to see those. Check out the cards and the description below for just that playlist that will show you how to make everything that we've seen. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. We'll be back with a brand new tutorial tomorrow, and I think that you guys are going to enjoy it.